welcome to another video. This is podcast episode 46, if I'm correct, and let's just get right into it. I don't think I have a lot of projects to show, but I have worked on things for a prolonged period. It has been about 2 weeks since I filmed the last episode, so I've made quite some progress. So first up, this is kind of funny because this is actually the opposite of progress, but I have finished this pullover, the sailor collar pullover by Mariko Oka. Yes, it's finally finished. Ta-da! Woo! It's finally done. And as you can see, less of the sweater is here than last week. And that's basically because I really did not like the look of this sweater with the sleeves. There's something wrong with the shape of the armscye or armhole. I think armscye is a sewing term, but when I posted my question about, wait, let me just roll back the tape and give some information about this sweater if you haven't watched any of my other episodes. So yes, this is a Japanese pattern that came out, I believe, last year in Daruma's pattern book number 8, I believe, and it's supposed to be a pullover, a sailor collar pullover, so a pullover with a sailor collar in the back, and it's supposed to have long sleeves. So yeah, I ended up using some let's roll it back. I used some onion yarn number 4, which is 70% organic wool and 30% nettle, and it has a yardage of 130 meters per 50 grams, so it's a DK weight yarn. And I used the color that I chose was number 8, also known as Cola. Yes, and the construction, it's a drop shoulder. It's supposed to be a drop shoulder pullover. As with most Japanese patterns, it's knit flat. Although I do have to say, in recent times, I've seen more Japanese designers go, or more traditional Japanese designers who have their work published in magazines such as Keito Dama or Marché. Yeah, I've seen that they are trying to. I've seen a kind of shift going more to European methods of knitting, so in the round. But this one is flat, and another popular way of casting on is using a provisional cast on and then knitting up and then coming back for the ribbing. So that's exactly what is done here. It's knit flat. It's knit flat, the front and the back, and then I came back to do the rolled stockinette. Yeah, the stockinette stitch hem, the rolled one, after I finished doing the sweater. And yeah, you do some Japanese short rows in the back for shaping, and then I don't know what they suggested, but I just did a 3-needle bind off to seam the 2 pieces together at the top, and then I just did a mattress seam stitch, mattress seam. Yes, I just did one of those for the sides, and then I crocheted the collar onto the back using slip stitches. Yeah, and the collar is just twisted ribs with the knit stitches being twisted. Yep. So what did I want to say about this? So I want to try and show you how the armhole looks. So I don't know exactly what's going on, but for some reason the shape of the armhole, I think basically it was just too large for the section at where it hit my arms, if that makes any sense. For it to not twist in any way, shape or form. So basically what happened was that once I'd finished doing all this, I started working on the sleeves. So I picked up stitches all around the armhole, and then I knit up an entire sleeve. And every time I tried it on, it was turning inwards, and it was really weird. And so I tried blocking it, that didn't help. I looked on some of the Ravelry projects that of this pattern, and some of them had it, others didn't. And yeah, I also asked on Reddit, and it seems that there's just something weird about this armhole. It's just too big. The placement is wrong or something, and it's causing it to twist. So I ended up just taking out the sleeve and just keeping it as is, because even before I actually started working on the sleeves, I had tried this on its own, and it looked pretty good in my opinion. And so I've just been wearing this as, I guess you could call it an oversized vest, because it's such a dramatic drop shoulder. It does kind of function as a sleeve. I am going to record some beef footage after I've filmed the podcast, so it'll be here for you to see how it actually looks on me. And to be honest, this is one of my most recent favorites alongside the Norma sweater. This is definitely something that I reach towards or reach for in the morning when I'm wearing something like this, just a long sleeve, and it's a bit cold because my desk is next to the window, so the cold air comes from above, and so I'll just put this on, and I love the way it looks, and it keeps me warm as well. So I'm just very happy with this, and I have gotten quite a bit of wear out of this in the past 2 weeks. I think I've worn this anywhere between 3, 4 times, 5 times, maybe probably even more, because I just also randomly just wear it in the evening for a couple of hours before I go to bed. So this is a great new asset to my closet. I am very happy with it. And also another thing that I would like to say is actually that Daruma pattern book 9 recently came out, and I had a look at the patterns. I think most of them are all right. There wasn't really any one initially that really appealed to me, but when I was looking more and more at the pictures, there was this one that had these huge cables all over, and I thought, you know what, that's actually pretty cool. But then I noticed that it was having kind of the same issue as with this sweater, that the sleeve is kind of rolling inwards, and I just think that it's, well, I'm probably just talking out of my ass now. Well, I know I'm doing so, but I personally think it's because it's the armholes are too deep. So I don't know if I want to mess around and find out and try and shorten the armholes and see if the sleeves actually look better that way, but I'll have to think about that for now. I still have some drops, what's it called? Drops Naples left, which is an Aran weight yarn that I've been trying to get rid of this past year. I do have to say, I have sold quite a lot of it on Marktplatz, which is nice. Oh, I completely forgot. I also wanted to talk about my yarn management this episode. I've bought a lot of yarn over the past, how many years? 10 years, something like that, from knitting on and off. And my way of knitting, my preferences in terms of colors and in terms of yarn weights has definitely changed a lot. I do like my Aran weight project from time to time, but definitely bulky knits are not something that I'm very interested in. Also, now that I'm getting more into vintage patterns, fingering weight yarn, sport weight yarn are weights that I'm more interested in knitting. DK as well, but it's I'm seeing a trajectory towards sports and fingering weight, also because I think it's going to be a bit more economic for me, if that makes any sense, because it's for a t-shirt at least. I am planning on making a couple of vintage tops, and it makes a lot of sense to financially just knit those with very lightweight yarns, because for one, it's going to be a t-shirt, so it's nice if it's on the thinner side, and also it's way cheaper. I've been doing some research, and if you think about it, right, so on the cheap end of fibers, if we're talking about natural fibers in terms of yarn, you can get about 100 grams for about €6, or €4 is, I think, the baseline. That's when we're talking about drops, and then, or for at least where I'm living, it's all very subjective, of course. And then, yeah, still on the cheap side is about €6, I would say. So it cost about 150 grams to make a short sleeve shirt in my own size. So that would cost me about €9, which is really affordable when you compare it to a lot of the oversized silk mohair plus I don't know, fingering weight yarn. It's way more economic for me. So I think I'm heading towards that. Having said that, kind of going back to getting kind of a hold on all of the yarn that I own, I have actually managed to put all of the information in my Notion program. So I created a page where I have my yarn, the name, the brand, the name, color, weight, fiber content, yes, all of that. I made an entire table, and I cataloged all of the yarn, and it's just so nice to have that, because it's way easier for me to now kind of recognize what yarn I probably am not going to use in the next 3-4 years and just decide to sell it. And it's very easy now when I see a project that I might be interested in, I can just select which type of weight I need for that project, and then look through my entire stash and also look at the colors and see what works. It's very, very nice. So I'm very happy with that. It definitely took me a really long time to get to the level of organization that I'm at the moment. I believe it took me an entire week full time, so I would say probably 40 hours to do all of that, spread over I would say 7 months, something like that. So every couple of weeks I would take a couple of hours out of my day, or just spend an entire day just sifting through things, taking pictures, putting them online to sell, and I'm just very happy about this. I know I'm rambling a lot about it, but it has brought a bit of a sense of peace to me, knowing that I have everything under control and everything nicely recorded. It's great. So that's everything for the sailor pullover, as well as yarn management. What else do I have on the menu? Sorry, that sounded too corny. What else do I have to say? Yes, okay, next up are the Momento socks by Calling for Orpheus. I actually lost this pair. I actually put it in a basket of yarn under my desk and just didn't bother to look there. So I haven't made much progress. Basically, I've just finished... I've finished the leg, and at the moment I'm working on the... what would you call it? Yeah, the heel flap. So here's the sock. The leg is finished, and here's the heel flap. I'm just doing a basic slipped stitch heel flap because I just really like them. In terms of yarn that I'm using, this is Mayflower 1 class. It's 75% superwash wool and then 25% nylon, and it has a yardage of 210 meters per 50 grams. As you can see, this is a top-down sock. The original had a short row heel, but I am doing a heel flap gusset sock with the gusset at the bottom, and I thought that that would help me make this pattern completely seamless, but as I was thinking, it wouldn't really be the case. The reason why I chose to do this construction instead of the short row heel is because I didn't want to do a short row heel, and I wanted to try and see if I could keep the pattern. I could knit this sock without, how would I say it, completely disrupting the pattern. And so that would mean that I'd have to do the gusset at the bottom. And I think that I made a bit of a miscalculation because, as you can see, every skull section shifts half a motif. So you have one skull here, and then the second row of skulls is shifted half a motif, and then it's shifted again half a motif, so the top and the first and the third row align, etc, etc. And so that would mean that if I would make the gusset, if the gusset is longer than one skull row, which it most definitely is, that would mean that I would have half a skull on the sides. But I don't think that would be that big of a deal. Maybe it would be even cool to see the skull in the middle with the gusset closing in, if that makes any sense. I'm not very good at visualizing this, how it's going to look, but I think that's also something that's very exciting about this. So not really much else to talk about. I think I am going to take this to the library coming week and knit on this during my breaks, but I think it looks really good from afar. I'm very happy with it so far, and hopefully this will be done by or before Halloween. Why? Actually, I don't know, because I'm gonna wear this after Halloween as well. So, in any case, I don't want to set any deadlines, but also I do want to post kind of thematic videos, if that makes any sense. So hopefully there's going to be a vlog about these, and maybe another project which I will get to later. Now I just want to talk a bit about the Isaya Archives collection project that I've been working on. I've been trying to knit every single piece of the collection, and I have 3 done, and I think I have about 13 to go. And the most recent one that I've been working on was the Johanne loop sweater by Other Loops, and I hit a roadblock. Well, actually, I'm very happy that I realized this, because I was on Reddit, I was on r/knitting, and I remember there being a post maybe last week about someone who had used a 100% alpaca yarn for her sweater, and she blocked it and it lost its shape, its, I don't know, fluffiness, or its structure, essentially, it had lost. And in the comment section, a lot of people were saying that, for one, alpaca, 100% alpaca can grow quite a lot. And I feared that that was going to happen with my sweater as well, so I did block it. And 2 is that alpaca doesn't have the same memory as regular wool has, and so when it stretches out, it stretches out. It stretches out. It doesn't go back to its shape once you block it. And I was a bit concerned about that, because the yarn that I was using for this sweater was 100% alpaca yarn, and it was expensive yarn. I did get it on a major deal, but regardless of price, I didn't want to make something that would lose its shape and it wouldn't look good on me, and then I've wasted all this time on it. So I think the last episode I said that I was going to restart it with bigger needles, because I actually made quite a bit of the sweater, the bottom at the front or back, and it seemed like it was going to be a bit too small, so I restarted it, got quite far with that one as well, once I realized all of the the characteristics of alpaca. So I ended up putting that project on pause and then doing something completely different. So hopefully in a couple of weeks I can get back to that project. In any case, talking about going back to an old project, that's actually what I did with this one. So this is the second sweater that I'm knitting for my boyfriend this year. The first one was the mid-winter sweater, I believe, that I finished, I think maybe 4 months ago, something like that. Yep, and this is the second one, and as you can see, it is almost done. It's quite hard to get this actually in frame. I'll try and put some footage of it right here. In any case, this needs a major update on the podcast. So the yarn that I'm using is this lovely kilcarra tweed. This is 100% wool, and it has all these beautiful speckles in there. So I actually didn't choose this color. This was chosen by my boyfriend. He really liked the way it looked, because from afar it kind of looks mostly grey. You don't really see the colors that much, and it's only when you really get up close you can see how colorful it is, and I do really like the effect. So it is an Aran weight yarn, 80 meters per 50 grams, and the needles that I'm using for this are, I completely forgot to mention the needle sizes in the other projects, but I'm guessing I'll just put that in in post. But yeah, I used 4.5 millimeter needles for the body, and then for the ribbing I used 3 millimeter needles. So I had to go down 3 needle sizes because the stitches would just not get smaller for the ribbing. So I did that. I did that also at the bottom. So as you can see, this, I don't know, it's been quite a long time, but this doesn't look like the like the sweater that I had shown a couple of months ago when I was first working on this sweater, and that's because I ripped everything out. I was struggling a lot with trying to get a piece that would fit my boyfriend. He veers quite extremely away from what you would call the standard sizing. He's very tall, so he has very long arms and a very long torso, and I was struggling trying to adjust it with the other the other pattern. I believe it was called the patchwork sweater. So it was also a raglan, but this one you knit in pieces from the bottom, and you had a strip of stockinette stitch at the center, and then at the sides you would have reverse stockinette, and the same would go for the sleeves. What else was there to say about it? I don't know. I was just not feeling it, and that was also one of the reasons as to why the sweater wasn't getting done, because I felt that I had to constantly think, how am I going to fix this? Because I started with the back panel and it just looked comedically long. In general, when I'm knitting something for my boyfriend, it always looks comedically long. I'm starting to realize, but this felt a bit too much, and I had messed up somewhere. Somehow it became 7 centimeters too long, and I didn't know how to fix it because I didn't know if the armhole depth was correct, and or if the body length, it was just not working out for me. So I thought, you know what, let me look for another pattern, and I started looking online. I wanted to get either a pattern that would be very affordable or just completely cheap. Well, I mean, or for free, and I couldn't find one that I felt would really work well for my boyfriend, for me in terms of knitting, and also I don't know the other point, but it was not working out for me. And so then I started looking inward, and by that is I just went through some of the vintage pattern books that I had. Also couldn't find anything that would really work well for me because they're all knit flat, and for some reason I needed something that I could make him wear, because it's a huge investment of time to knit something for him, and so I would like to minimize the amount of redos, if that makes any sense. I just wanted something a bit more efficient, and that meant that I would have to make him try it on. And luckily, for some reason, I was reminded of this one Japanese book that I had been reading a while back. This one right here. It's called Jibun saizu no seettaa wo amu, skina saizu, skina ito de amu hoho. So knitting a sweater in your own size with your preferred, with your preferred size and preferred thread yarn. And this is by Tomoko Nishimura. This is the same person. I don't know if there's a picture of her here, but no. This is the same person who made this other book that I had that has 40 plus bind off techniques and did I say bind off? Cast on techniques and bind off techniques. That book is also excellent. And just a recap when it comes to this book, it basically gives you the fundamentals of the most popular sweater constructions. So you have your satin sleeve, a raglan, circular yoke. What else do you have? Oh, you also have knitting a sweater horizontally. So starting off with the sleeves and then going all the way to the body, and then the other sleeves, and then they have saddle shoulder, drop shoulder, and then I think, yeah, they have 3 different drop shoulders, and that's about it. And aside from that, she gives you very easy and straightforward techniques on how to actually make adjustments. For instance, if you're very tall, you need more sleeve, where to actually place the extra section of this, or when it comes to your body, if you need to widen the body or widen the neckline, or this section here, this horizontal section, how to do that, and how to adjust that per sweater, because you know there are different sweaters that have, how would I say this, different consequences when you increase at places, if that makes any sense. I think there's this one interesting section, maybe with a circular yoke, no, raglan. There's this illustration here that kind of tells you what happens if you, for instance, lengthen, I believe, if you lengthen the sleeve at the, no, is it lengthen? Yeah, you lengthen your sleeve before you split for sleeves, and you see that, of course, the sleeve section here is lengthened, but also your body gets wider as well. And so this book is just to give you a fundamental understanding of basic sweater constructions. And so I picked that up and I started looking at the raglan section. So one of the things is that they give you the pattern for this base raglan. So it's a top down raglan with some slipped stitches at the bottom for the sleeves and the body. And so I just kind of looked at, basically what I did was I just took the stitch count here, converted it to, how would I say this? Converted it to centimeters, then took a swatch that I made with the kilcarra tweed and then converted that to the amount of stitches that I needed. And then I just went. I just did a raglan. I just started doing the raglan increases. Well, no, I didn't do the raglan increases instantly. Well, I did, but I don't know if it was mentioned here in the book, but I did make sure that there would be enough of, how would you say this? I would drop the neck a bit by adding short rows in the back. And I did that because I did maybe 3 rows of short rows with the midwinter sweater, and it's not very dramatic, but it does slightly choke my boyfriend, and so I figured, you know, I need some more short rows in there. So I did about 5 centimeters at the back. So I I didn't necessarily take a percentage of the how would I say this, of the neck. I think there is some type of rule that would work, something like you go from 60 to 80% of the circumference. I just kind of winged it. I just chose a section and then I started adding them, and then I added a couple at the shoulders as well. I think maybe 2 shoulders at the shoulders. And then I just kind of kept going. I made my boyfriend wear it a number of times just to see if it fit him. I used the mid-winter sweater also as a reference when it came to the length of the arms and the arm side. What's it called? Armhole depth. Yes, that as well. And so as I was working on the sweater, I kept getting a better and better and better understanding of the structure of the structure of a sweater that would fit my boyfriend. And so I kind of now know the measurements now, and I feel very confident in actually working on something that, on a sweater that is in pieces, and I'll be confident that it will fit him if I match the dimensions that I'm aiming for. So that's a very nice feeling. I had on my goals list, or goals bingo card, that I was going to knit my boyfriend 3 sweaters, as he struggles very much with finding a sweater that fits him adequately. So there's that. This one's almost done. I'm probably going to be finishing the sleeve today. I will say though, I've had a bit of an issue with the neckline. I've knitted up twice and I've found that it's just not stretchy enough. On his body, the ribbing does look very nice, or at least did. It's gone now, but it looked quite nice. And he had no issues when it came to putting it on, but it was getting tough taking off the sweater. And I actually did, I think initially I might have just, I don't know exactly what, I think twice I did an Italian bind off, and both times it didn't work. I think another time, the first time I used 2.5mm needles, and I thought, okay, maybe if I do 3mm needles, it would be better. And it was, but not enough. And so I had to take that out, and I think I'm going to reknit this with 3mm needles. But then I'm going to use Very Pinks's very stretchy bind off. I don't know if it has an explicit name, but I remember that Very Pink Knits introduced at least me to this bind off, where basically you do your regular bind off, so just the most basic one that doesn't have any stretch, right? And then instead of slipping the first stitch over the second one, you actually knit them together or purl them together depending on the stitch at the front, I believe. In any case, I'll leave a link to that video in the description box below, because clearly the Italian bind off was not working with this neckline. I did do it here at the sleeves and it wasn't tight enough around his wrists, I felt, so I added an elastic. I sewed it in and just pulled it in a bit. I used an elastic just to keep the elasticity. I didn't necessarily want it to cinch up and then you can spread it very wide, so it is quite tight still, but it looks really good on him, I think. And then the bind off that I used at the bottom is just your regular schmegular bind off, and that's just because this sweater has about, I would say 20 centimeters of positive ease, and I just wanted something nice and clean, and I didn't feel like I didn't feel that doing an Italian bind off would really add much to the sweater. I like how the regular one looks, how you can see half of the V's at the bottom, and it looks clean, neat, and he has no issues putting it on. So that is great. Very happy with this. It became quite addictive working on this, I have to say. I've done this over, I think, maybe 10 days or something, and I just really love those projects that have you just on a roll and just excited to have it done. So yeah, I'm going to finish this today, and I'm going to be very happy seeing him in the sweater complete. Yes, I think this is going to be his best sweater to date. The first one was quite rough when it came to construction, and there are definitely things that I would have done differently, and that's great because I feel as if I have implemented everything that I've learned from the first sweater into this one. It might not be something that I could directly point towards, but it's definitely a lot of experience obtained from both of these sweaters. So I'm very, very, very happy with that. So that, I think, is everything with regards to... No. I still have a tiny project here. So remember last episode how I spoke about knitting a pair of socks for my boyfriend with yarn that we bought in Antwerp? I found my own ball of it. So it's the same type of yarn, but then not striped. It is Novita's Seven Brothers. It's an Aran weight yarn, 100 meters per 50 grams. It's 75% wool and then 25% polyamide, and this is the color Columbine 596. I really like the dark aubergine red colors. I think I like dark colors in general, and I'm very happy with this. Very affordable as well, €6.50 per 100 grams. I think I'm only going to be able to make one pair of these socks, but maybe if I get really lucky I can make another pair. We'll just have to see. So the pattern is called Timmer Socks, and it is by Agnes Brandels. I'm not too sure which Scandinavian accent or pronunciation, I should say, pronunciation that I should use, because Järbo, who is offering this pattern, works with basically not only Swedish designers but also Norwegian, I'm pretty sure Finnish ones as well, and Danish ones, and sometimes it's a bit hard to figure out. In any case, I'll leave a link to the pattern below. It's a free one. Unfortunately, it's not available in English at the moment. I think it's available in Swedish and also Dutch. That one I know for sure because I'm using the Dutch pattern or the Dutch version to knit this up. Yep, so it's a top-down sock, very straightforward. I just use the long tail cast on because that's just my favorite for socks. And once you do the ribbing, you then knit broken rib. I believe that's how it's called. It's 3 knit stitches, 2 purls, and you just do that until the end of the round, and then you knit an entire round, and that's essentially the pattern. I believe then once you've gotten to the heel, you then do a German short row heel. So that's what I'm planning to do. Needles, I'm using 3mm needles. I used 3.5. Wait, no. Does that make any sense? you use smaller needles for the ribbing. Yes. So it's 3.5 millimeter for the ribbing and then 3 millimeter for the body. That's what I'm doing. And yeah, just following the instructions, pretty straightforward. Hopefully by the end of next week I'll have a new pair of socks, because I think I already said this, but I've walked through, or I have patches, no, I have holes in, at this moment, 2 of my thicker socks, the ones that I like to use at home. I have to patch them up, and it would also just be very nice to have an extra pair. I also quickly want to talk about some of the sewing that I've been doing. I've dabbled into sewing here and there over the past 2 years. I would say the first time that I actually kind of took it serious was, or when I actually started making something, was when I was in Japan. I went to a 3-hour parasol sewing course, and I sewed up a parasol with the help of a teacher, and it was really fun. Then a couple of months ago I made a pair of pajama shorts with some fabric, some African fabric that I had laying around. And when I was in Japan, I bought, I think, 3 sewing books. Funnily enough, 2 were specifically aimed towards men, but I just thought it was really interesting. And then one had more feminine clothes. It's this one right here. It's called Amai Fuku. And these are all made by Asuka Hamada. A lot of it is quite oversized, and so I guess that leaves quite a lot of space to kind of mess up, if that makes any sense. But this is definitely not something that I'm aiming towards with my sewing. I'm hoping to sew up some vintage patterns in the future. I bought a couple of German ones, which, as I'm looking at them now, they're becoming more doable. I'm getting some more knowledge about how to sew things. And yeah, let me just show you the one that I did. So it's this one right here. These are actually almost identical. The only difference is that this has, I don't know how you would call it, a straight collar, one that goes up, and then this one right here has more of your classic collar. So it's this one I made, and then this one is the second option. So what I did was I bought some fabric. I had also gone to my local secondhand store, thrift store, I think is what you call it, and I bought a number of bed sheets, and I did some practice on it. I practiced the first kind of basic steps, and once I felt confident in that, I actually just went on and did the whole thing on how would I say it? I just did the whole thing on with the fabric that I had bought. So I can show you how it looks right now. So this is the shirt, and I don't have buttons yet because the buttons required, I think, what was it, 1.5 millimeter buttons, and I tried looking for those online and they were €2 a piece, which is kind of wild because I spent about, I think, about 15 or 16 euros on the fabric for this. I needed about 2 meters for this shirt, and and so I needed 7 buttons, or no, 9 buttons. So that would mean that I would spend just as much on the buttons as on the shirt. And so I remembered that I found this this lady online selling vintage buttons here in the Netherlands, and so I just bought a bunch from her. And I think the buttons that I ended up buying were 1 centimeter, I think, something like that, 12, maybe 12 centimeters black buttons that looked really nice, and they were 50 cents for 20 pieces of vintage buttons. So of course that was a really good deal. And I got some other buttons as well that I thought were cute that I might want to use in future projects. So so maybe I can tell you about the things that I did with regards to this shirt in terms of sewing, things that I learned. First off, I learned how to use facing. So I had to put facing here at the collar and also at the front of the shirt and here with the sleeves. I learned how to sew buttonholes. I used my machine for it. I found the button maker that came with my machine. So I have a Toyota R2300, I believe. It's a pretty affordable machine, and I took it from my parents' home. And because I thought we had the machine because several years ago, my aunt came to sew our curtains, and in the end, I thought, this is what I thought, right? I thought that my parents bought the machine so that she wouldn't have to travel with hers in order to just sew up the curtains. But turns out, and this is what my mom told me, is that my dad actually used to sew, because he's about the same length as I am, which is very short. And so with a lot of his clothing, he would have to take in the sleeves and the hem for them to actually fit him nicely. And so apparently he already knew how to sew from, I think, maybe secondary school or something like that. And so I didn't know that, but in any case, he's not using it anymore. So I got a free sewing machine to practice on, long story short. So yeah, this is my first top clothing piece. Like I said, I did the umbrella, I did the pajama shorts, and yeah, this is, I guess, my third project. Things that I did. I learned how to do top stitching as well. I talked about the interfacing, the buttons. What else did I do? I tried to... I don't have an overlocker. An overlocker is a machine that cuts the edge and sews it cleanly. So I used the zigzag stitch to do that. And the first time it went quite well, but the other times it did not go that well. And I think it's because of the tension. I changed the tensioning on my machine because there were some sections that required me to sew through quite a number of layers, and so I don't know if you can see it. I didn't really do a good job of that, but I think that's the reason why it didn't go all that well. What else did I do? Oh yes, pleats. I learned how to do pleats for the sleeves. They're all looking a bit jank at the moment, but yeah, I did that as well. I can show you also, okay, I can show you some details. Maybe I can do this better in the next episode when hopefully I'll have all of the buttons fixed. Here is some top stitching, a close-up of the collar, maybe a bit of the hem here. I'll show you the inside as well. I had struggles trying to install the collar and the, what would you call it? This, yeah, the sleeve as well. No, not the sleeve, but the, I don't know how to call it, but essentially I had to flip this over and top stitch it down. This was quite tough. Oh yeah, the sleeves here. The sleeves are rough. Again, with the zigzag stitch, it wasn't going all that well. And then folding this cuff over the pleats was rough, especially on at the sides. You can still see a bit of the raw edges here, but it's not something that'll really show once I'm wearing it. So that's nice. There's just a lot of left to learn. Obviously, I'm a total beginner, but also I think one of the things that I would like to focus on from the start is working on my level of finishing, because that really elevates your piece. So I was also very diligent when it came to pressing my seams and trying to finish them. So in the end, I think, you know, if I wouldn't have done that, it would have looked a lot more rough, to be honest. Yeah, you can see also here at the side that I just had a bit more struggles when it came to actually, yeah, to those parts where you have to sew things. I'm not going to explain, but I was having a tough time with getting all of the raw edges from, all of the raw edges from the shirt into the places where you had interfacing. Is there anything else I wanted to say? Oh yeah, I messed up the buttonhole placement at the top. I didn't take into account that this had to align quite a bit with the buttonholes here. So if I button this up, it kind of goes inward. You're probably not, I can't really explain it that well, but the sweater overlaps a bit too much, I think. But then again, I did actually check. I looked at the book today and I am seeing the same thing happen in this shirt. Might not be as dramatic as the one that I have. You can see that there's a bit of a bump here. So I don't know what that is all about. We'll just have to see. Last thing I would like to say is that I looked into vintage costumes because I thought that's a really cool topic. My mom went to the UK a couple of months ago and I ended up buying something that she because the shipping is very expensive now to the UK because they left the EU. So basically I sent a couple of sewing patterns, or sewing books rather, to my mom when she was there so that she could bring them back to me when she came. So I got this Simplicity sewing book updated. So this is, I believe, from the 70s. I'm not too sure. I think yes. I'm pretty sure it's it's from the 70s. So lots of explanation on different techniques and knowledge about fibers, stuff like that. But also I have one from the 40s as well, because they brought this out a number of times and I think I have 2 or 3 versions. They were going for about £5, which is about 5 or 6 euros a piece. And yeah, I just thought it'd be very helpful, and it's cool to see an instructional book from different decades, because definitely this one has way more information than the one from the 40s. But I have also noticed some different types of approaches, and I think also a way of thinking. In the one from the 40s, I would show you, but I couldn't find it just now in my living room. But the one in the 40s starts off with how to flatter yourself. So, for instance, if you're very short, which types of styles that you should be wearing to either elongate yourself or shorten yourself, how to accentuate your waist or actually accentuate your hips, things like that, trying to get towards the standards that were then the 40s and 50s. So that was very interesting to read through. Yeah, I read through about 50 or 60% of that, and I think I'm just going to go back and do that a couple of more times just to really understand the techniques and just see how much my understanding is improving in terms of sewing. Yep. Is that yeah, I think that's about right. Another book that I got, this was more so for, how would I say this, for inspiration, as the book says. It's called Masquerade, Costume Inspiration from the 1920s to 1950s. And it's just a lot of cool stuff that they have here. Just some cool costumes that they had apparently in their archives. And I wanted to try and make one of these, but obviously I don't have the skills as someone who, you know, knows nothing about sewing. At least, you know, at the point that I got this, I had absolutely, well, I still don't have a lot of experience. Let's not talk about that. But in any case, I thought maybe I could find something very easy to make. But I tell you, I found at the back they have picture credits. And I do have to say these picture credits are completely jacked up, because they don't even correctly reference the, how would I say it? They don't really correctly reference the actual credit, because, okay, so, and that makes it so hard to actually find originals. And this is the thing that pisses me off, because, for instance, if you see this from Gunther's, I don't think you can read it, but it says from Gunther's Carnival Fasching. Yeah, so I type this in and I get absolutely no results. And I think I tried this list a number of times. I did find the Weldon's one, and I think the Vogue's book of fancy dress as well, but the other ones I could not find any information about it, and it was really irking me, if I'm being very honest. And for some reason I just kept on going, and then I figured out whilst googling that it's not Gunther's Carnival Fasching, but it's Gunther's Carnival Fasching, and that they changed the spelling of carnival to English spelling instead of German. And that's really all it took, those changes, for me to find a number of these magazines. And I ended up buying 2 of them, and I don't know, I'm a bit disappointed, but I can also see this as a challenge, you know. So I ended up getting this one. So this one is from 1949, and it's just filled with different pictures of carnival costumes, as you can see. And the thing that kind of irked me is because it says mit Schnittmusterbogen für alle Modelle. So with, how would I say it? With sewing patterns for all models. But that's not true, because they have quite a couple that are just not available in the page that they give you. So I don't have it here right now because it's in the living room, but it's this huge page that will, I think, literally I think it's going to mess with my eyes at some point, because it's an actual hell trying to trace costumes from this page. I mean, it was not in the 40s and late 40s in West Germany. I can't imagine West Germany, I should say, being that wealthy, and so they just put, I don't know, more than 100 different pieces on one big A5. I don't know, not A5, or just one big poster for you to figure out how to trace it. In any case, I really wanted to do this one because it seemed to not use a lot of fabric, and it seemed quite easy, straightforward to do it. And guess what? It's not in this book. And 145, this one, is also not in this book. But I ended up finding one that I think might just work out for me. And that is this one right here, the ladybird. So I'm going to try and make this one. I spent time trying to trace over the pattern for this, and the experience was not pleasant at all. But I think I've traced almost everything except for the front part of the shorts, and yeah, there are no instructions, so I have to kind of figure out myself how to most efficiently do it. They gave me the amount of yardage that I might need, which sections need some interfacing, and what else is there? I think that's about it. They gave me the grain lines as well, but or how to put the, I think that's what you call it, how to position the pieces on the fabric. So what I'm first going to have to do is first I've traced it, almost done with that step. Then I use some tracing paper, which is very flimsy, so then I have to transfer that tracing paper to some brown wrapping paper that I've been using to cut out the pattern with. And so I'm going to have to add my own seam allowance to that. Then cutting that all out, I'm going to have to make a mock-up, because the only size that is in the book is size 44, and I checked in the pattern, on the pattern sheet, it says that it's for a bust of 98 centimeters. I have a bust of 83 centimeters, so that's 15 centimeters difference. So what's that? 7 inches? Does that make any sense? That's 7 inches? No, 6 inches difference. I'm just going to look at it first, sew up make the mock-up, and then see where I might need to make some adjustments, and then hopefully that'll work, and I'll have a very cute Halloween costume for nothing actually in particular. I don't really go to parties, so why am I making this? It's just for fun. I think it's really cool. I found some good fabric and some cool techniques, so I'm looking forward to trying those out. In any case, I think that's where I'm going to leave it for today. As always, thank you so much for watching. I know this one is a bit different with some more sewing stuff coming in as well. I hope that isn't, I don't know, too off-putting, but I'll try to always put that stuff at the end of the podcast, so you can just click off if you're not interested. But yes, like I said, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you soon in another video. Bye bye.